My name is Nic Kenny. I'm an ag engineer. I'm an independent consultant working with a handful of farm management companies and farmers and educational groups throughout the western part of the U.S. I'm centered out of Mesa, Arizona, and today I'm mentioning a couple of items that I think are very impactful in irrigated agriculture, and that's namely the GroGuru Probe and the process by which they're different than some of the other competitors. Namely, the GroGuru Probe is an overwintering probe, so it stays in the field for successive years. We had one installed in the Texas Panhandle that I got a chance to look at. I've previously had some overwintering probes in permanent crops in Arizona and California. This is the first time I've had one in a field crop where the crop was harvested, laid by, and then strip tilled and the new crop planted on top of it. A couple of observations that I'll make from my experience, which is 100% positive. One, the GroGuru Probe went in without any hiccup. It was installed. I was able to access software and deliverables immediately on the internet within the same day. That's always a challenge with a new product. In this case, this new product delivered right out of the box. Second, it worked well during the season. I was happy with it. It met my expectations of what a capacitance type, a soil moisture monitoring probe would do. It had reliable trends that could track the results from it. You could manage by. You truly could see rooting depths and soil water extraction at depths. It was a familiar interface that I was used to, and so it was a great stepping off point. We hit the ground running. But this is where it changes. We were able to watch now, because this was a permanently installed probe, we were able to watch the water extraction all the way through harvest, then track winter precipitation and all the impacts that it had. And then when we got into this spring, which is 2020, so for reference, we've been essentially on lockdown with COVID, travel restrictions, etc. I'm centered out of Arizona, do work across the West, and so a lot of what I do is somewhat remote. Having the ability to work from home and watch spring track into planting was absolutely vital this year. Some examples we had in the Texas Panhandle that I think are really applicable. We had a dry winter, so we were able to track those precipitation events throughout and notice that our soil coming out of cotton wasn't prepped for corn. We just didn't quite have the water storage to depth. I was able to see that off my computer screen, which you can't see it's off screen now, but I'm looking at it. And you can see that we needed to apply what I would call a late spring pre-water, because we just didn't quite have enough soil storage capacity for our critical management point. By being able to look at the charts, I could determine two separate pre-water applications. We made the decision to change from sprays to bubbler for an intermediate application to get water to depth, and then we were able to determine, based on the chart, the proper pivot speed. And all of those things were changes that were made essentially preseason and in-season, all before the typical probe would be installed. To me, that's really useful and helpful. Plus, it gave me a lot of confidence that when we did plant, we were planting into good and successful conditions. And as a consultant, for me, sometimes my work is really labored and detailed. Sometimes it's a 5-minute phone call that's really helpful to the guys that I work with. And so this is a priceless piece of information for me. The last point that I want to share is that as a consultant with multiple different clients, the GroGuru interface is set up in a way that I can log in, and if my client gives access, I can have the screen of all of the probes that I monitor. I don't have to individually log in to each individual user. To me, this is a really good setup. I think capacitance probes and soil moisture monitoring has come a long way in the last 10 years. It's my feel that this GroGuru product and the application of it is taking that next stepwise change in how to manage. The last point that I'm going to say is, without having the install and extraction process, it saves a ton of time. The cost and price point is now favorable for having a deep probe that stays in and overwinters, because you're looking at a service fee rather than install and removal fees, etc. And plus, you get the continuity. One of the last things, I keep saying the last thing, but there's more of it as I'm thinking about it. As we're starting to see water use begin in this 2020 season, the next thing that we're seeing is that I can draw a straight line across the GroGuru chart and see what my levels are this year compared to last year, because the soil calibration remains the same. The field hasn't changed, the probe hasn't changed, and although capacitance probes can be slightly relative, it is not going to be relative if it's installed in the same location year to year. I think that's one of the best points of it, and probably should have led with that, is it truly solves those calibration issues that have historically been a knock against capacitance probes. This becomes a very useful management tool.